This wild week of weather shows no signs of slowing down. We have heavy rain, severe weather, tornadoes, heavy snow, and all more next at the Weather Farm. Welcome to the Weather Farm. What a week it has been. We have been tracking heavy rain and snow, tornadoes across the south. Let's dive right into our Friday forecast. As we wake up, we see scattered rain and snow across the west, spreading into the Intermountain West with those heavy mountain snows. That energy is going to continue to move east on our Friday. It will make its way into the Central Plains and become the next big weather maker that we are going to be talking about. Elsewhere across the United States, we see light lake and showers for parts of New York and the upper Great Lakes, but it's a quiet Friday, Valentine's Day for most of the United States. But as we move into our Saturday, the pattern definitely changes. We see heavy rain starting to spread forth from Texas through Arkansas and the Tennessee Valley, all the way up to Ohio and across parts of Nebraska and Iowa into the Great Lakes. We see heavy snow. There's still some lingering snow showers across the Intermountain West, but that area of high pressure that is centered across Quebec, it is moving out as that area of low pressure starts to move in. The storms that we are seeing, the heavy rain in the south, that is going to be our focus area, as well as the heavy snow for our Saturday. So let's dive right into our details. So as we begin our Friday, we see that snow and rain in the west. That starts to move east. We see some snow beginning to form across the upper Great Lakes into our early Saturday morning. That continues to set the stage for what's going to be a wild Saturday of weather across the United States. In terms of our snowfall, just from Friday alone, where that snow gets going with that lift in the atmosphere, we're going to see a concentrated area across southeastern Minnesota, northeastern Iowa, into western Wisconsin in excess of 6 inches. Otherwise, we're going to see a wide swath of 3 to 5 inches from Nebraska stretching all the way up towards Green Bay. But as I mentioned, it is Saturday and it's all about the severe weather in the south. Now, Wednesday we had severe weather and we were tracking it live here at the Weather Farm. And we anticipate to have another very active day because at this time we've already put parts of Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama, those places that we saw the severe tornadoes and severe weather on Wednesday, that's under an enhanced risk. That's a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. Elsewhere through Tennessee, over into Georgia, back into Texas, you're under a slight risk, and then a marginal risk outside of that area. So we are going to have a wide area of focus for severe weather on our Saturday. And so let's dive right into what that could look like. So as we begin early Saturday morning, we see showers moving their way up into the Ohio Valley, but by the afternoon, we start to see this line starting to make some progress. And it gets going overnight Sunday or Saturday into early Sunday as it makes its way across Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. So let's look at this one more time. It's about 4 or 5 in the afternoon on Saturday when we really start getting going across Arkansas and Louisiana, and that line could make its way all the way to Georgia by the time we get to Sunday morning. So in terms of our rainfall, we're going to see generally light amounts out across parts of Texas into western Louisiana, but where you start getting under those heavy thunderstorms, that's where the precipitation is really going to get going. If we look back at our Saturday morning map, we see the heavy rain from Arkansas up to western Tennessee, Kentucky, up towards Ohio. And that's the type of rainfall we see. Arkansas, widespread 1 inch amounts. Northern Mississippi, up to 1 inch. Then we get up to Tennessee, we start getting into those 2 to 3 inch amounts, especially north of Memphis, making its way up to the land between the lakes. And when we get into southwestern Kentucky or far western Kentucky, far northwestern Tennessee, we could have a bullseye area where we are easily exceeding 4 to 6 inches of rain. I wouldn't be surprised to see a 7 or 8 inch amount in this area that's highlighted in the brown. And that area of 2 to 4 inches of rain stretches all the way from Arkansas through southern Ohio and even into southern Indiana. Just north of that, we're going to have a widespread 1 to 2 inch rainfall amount stretching all the way up towards State College, Pennsylvania. And then taking back down into the Dixie Alley, as where those storms are expected to be, that enhanced risk of severe weather. When we look at those rainfall amounts, we're going to see generally about an inch of rain for most areas, slightly less along southwestern Louisiana towards Texas. But if you get under the right thunderstorm, as we saw Wednesday night, you could be under drenching amounts of rain that could easily dump an inch per hour across the south. So again, this is what our setup is going to look like Saturday morning. We're going to have that steady, not severe weather stretching from Arkansas up towards Ohio. Across Nebraska into Iowa, stretching into the Great Lakes, we're going to have that heavy snow machine cranking with this area of low pressure that is centered across Kansas. It's going to continue to move towards the east. We're going to have some lingering mountain snows across the west. And for parts of British Columbia, we're going to see a system start to make its way onshore. But by the time we get to Sunday, we see that severe weather line snaking its way across the south. We see that low that on our Saturday was around 1,004 millibars when it was in Kansas. It has deepened as it's moved towards Cleveland, Ohio, into a 988 millibar low. So we've seen about a 16 millibar drop in about 24 hours. Not quite bomb cyclone criteria, but this storm is not over from intensifying. And because it's winding itself up, it's pulling in a lot more moisture and warm air. That warm air is going to surge all the way up into New York. So we're going to see heavy rains spreading into Pennsylvania, into West Virginia, even into central New York. While to the north and east of that, through Vermont and Maine and New Hampshire, we're going to see heavy snow. Boston, you could be on the border for initially mixed precipitation, changing over to some rain by the time we get to Sunday morning. But across the Great Lakes into Ontario and Quebec, it is all about heavy amounts of snow. And then we can look out west as well, and we see that system that was making its way onshore to British Columbia, it's bringing rain and snow to the Intermountain West. So by the time we get to Sunday morning, as that low continues to move to the northeast, we could see initial 3 to 5 inches of snow across northern Pennsylvania into central New York. That is going to quickly end and turn over to rain, but the snows are going to continue to increase as we make our way into the northeast, and they're definitely going to increase throughout Ontario into Quebec, where from Saturday to Sunday morning in a 24-hour period, we could see 10 inches of snow across Quebec or Ontario. As we make our way into then our Monday, from Sunday into Monday, that snow machine is going to continue to crank. Those areas that received about 10 inches of snow on Saturday, you could see an additional 10 inches of snow. And then as it makes its way into Quebec, that's where we're going to really see the low deepening and strengthening. And we could crank up to 2 feet of snow across parts of Quebec, even into northern Maine. The northern half of Maine is definitely within the bullseye of at least a foot of snow by the time we get to Monday morning. So let's put that storm into motion. This is Saturday. We watch the system deepening, now 1,005 millibar, now 1,003, and it's going to start pulling in that Gulf moisture as it continues to deepen down to 997. That system's moving east. Look how tight those pressure lines are getting. So it's not only going to be a rainy, snowy, soggy mess, but we're going to have extreme wind with this system. We're down to a 982 by the time it gets near Buffalo on Sunday evening, and the snow just keeps on going, and the low pressure just keeps on dropping, 977, 975 by the time we get to Monday morning. And because it's going to be off the coast of Nova Scotia for on Monday, it's still going to have that wraparound snow for parts of Quebec into northern Maine. So your snow, while we showed up to 15 to 18 inches by the time we got to Monday morning, that is not the end of your snow. You're going to continue to see snow piling up on your Monday. We could see a few more inches across parts of Quebec into northern Maine, making its way over into Nova Scotia by the time we get to Tuesday. So a wild weather system is definitely in store for the United States over the next 48 hours. And the thing is, this is the pattern. Here's the 500 millibar anomaly chart. So here's that storm that's going to crank through the Northeast this weekend. We see those purples and the cold air is going to continue to pervade the eastern half of the United States. Another jab is going to come up around the middle of next week. We get a slight warm up, but then another lobe of Arctic air makes its way across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. This one reaches down into Georgia as we get toward the last week of February. And as we start March, we see signs the west is going to be very warm. The eastern half of the United States is going to continue to get these jabs of Arctic air. And we really don't see that pattern changing. The only difference is as we get into March, the daylight is getting longer, temperatures are warming. The cold cannot last as long as it did in January. And so we will see days of colder than normal temperatures, and then we'll see a quick warm up and then another jab of cold Arctic air. So that's going to be the pattern that we have for the next 2 weeks as we close out our February. And the Climate Prediction Center agrees with us. They say for the western half of the United States, above normal temperatures. For the eastern half of the United States, below normal temperatures as we close out our February. Precipitation is going to be generally below normal for most of the United States during that time frame. So we're going to have the cold, but we're not necessarily going to have those big snowstorms or those heavy amounts of rain like we've seen this week or that we're going to see this coming weekend. So that is one good sign that we're not going to definitely get those heavy snowstorms like we've seen. And that's confirmed here also with our risk of heavy snow. The Climate Prediction Center and NOAA, they have no heavy snow risk during that same time period of February 21st through the 27th. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this forecast from the Weather Farm. Have a great Friday, and we'll see you again real soon.